we'll cut it out.
Somebody in my household's been struggling. Kia ora, my name's Kimmy and I talk about F1 in the world's second worst accent, and this weekend I was planning on doing a few videos while taking you on a bit of a scenic tour of some camping sites around Aotearoa's glorious top of the south, but well, a cyclone sideswipe's kind of come along and put a damper on all that, so we're back in the media room, I guess. No longer in someone else's dining room, so that's a bonus. It's been a bit of a disruptive week for me, so I'm a bit late here, but even though Media Day's already come and gone, here's my 3 burning questions for this weekend's 2025 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Please, I am begging. Look, it's not been a great start to the year for Fernando Alonso, has it? Coming into the 5th race of the season, and he's still sitting on a donut, while Lance Stroll was the one who managed to squeeze some decent finishes out of the car when it wasn't a glorified turd on wheels. And for all the Fernando fans out there, looking at you, Biz, who thought Adrian Newey was going to come in and start applying patches at a rate of knots to the current concept, well, that pipe dream's well and truly shattered with Andy Cowell's upfront statement that Newey's entirely focused on the 2026 car, and that's not going to change. So, if you're ready to jump off a bridge if Alonso doesn't get some points on the board this weekend, it might be a good time to go out there and buy yourself a bungee cord. And look, as much as I called the car a glorified turd, the reality is it's not that bad. None of this year's cars are really that bad, which is evident by the tightness of the field. The problem you get when you reach this point in a regulation cycle is that the cars have pretty much reached the upper limit of performance. Aston Martin came out of the gate swinging in 2023 because a few of the top teams had struggled to get a handle on things the previous year, so all those podiums we saw weren't so much artificially inflated as they were an example of what happens when some teams get it right over the winter and others get it wrong. Now that Mercedes and McLaren are performing at a higher level with more consistency, and teams like Williams, Haas and Racing Bulls have become more competitive, this pushes Aston Martin deeper into the midfield as they have less room to improve their car. And realistically, it's not outside the realms of possibility that they see a move up the field as detrimental in one key way, because while prize money is nice, I imagine they're far more focused on ATR time and getting the most out of that shiny new wind tunnel. You don't drop that much money on hiring an aero guy and building a new aero facility without making sure you've got as much time as possible to gather as much data as possible to correlate. So will Fernando get points this weekend? Honestly, don't hold your breath. George Russell is currently 14 points behind Lando Norris in the Drivers' Championship after 4 races. Let that sink in. 14 points. That's less than the difference between winning a race and coming 5th. You might think the buzz about George being a genuine title contender is overblown and silly, but when you consider we're already 4 races into the season and all it would take for George to take control of the championship is a win, combined with a 5th and 6th from the McLarens, you realise exactly how much consistency could come into play in a season where the top team has both drivers fighting for the glory. 2007 much. Now, the best track we have for comparison so far is Suzuka, and as much as Jeddah has been described as Suzuka with walls in the past, the similarities are more than face value this year thanks to the partial resurfacing we saw in Japan. Now, Mercedes didn't have the best time out in Suzuka, but the temperature was markedly different than what we'll see this weekend. Pirelli is bringing tyre compounds that are 2 steps softer than what we saw in Japan, and the Mercedes seems to be performing well in warmer weather this year, unlike previous seasons where it's just kind of been a bit dodgy. So while yes, it might take some stars to align for George to win in Saudi, I don't think it's impossible. If he's able to qualify in the top 4 and the team hits every note exactly right, I wouldn't be surprised if George comes out of this one on the top step. This is a track with a 100% historic rate of safety cars after all. And sure, it's only been run 4 times, but it's quick, those walls are close, and the McLarens are already well and truly both gunning for that Drivers' Championship. And do you know what I'm gunning for? 1,000 subscribers by the time my channel turns 2 on the 21st of August. It's a small goal, but I think it's achievable. If you do click that subscribe button, thanks so much, I really appreciate it a lot. So look, as much as I think George could very well sneak in and take this one, I think the big question is, with Oscar Piastri only 3 points behind Lando Norris, will he win the intra-team battle this weekend and make his way to the top of the table? If I were a betting person, I'd be putting $100 on yes. And this isn't a slight on Lando Norris as much as it is a belief that Oscar Piastri is willing to do whatever it takes to get an edge on his teammate. There's a couple of things going on here. While I think Lando is still overall the better between the two of them, Oscar is improving week on week and has more of a handle on the characteristics of this year's car than Lando. That's not to say that everything won't suddenly click into place for Norris, but he does really seem to be suffering from a similar, if far less troublesome issue with understanding how to adapt to the fundamental braking characteristics of the car as Daniel Ricciardo did in 2022. Which is a pretty big problem when Jeddah is a track where you need absolute confidence in your ability to get every corner right or risk ending up in the wall at very high speed. Now Lando's younger and probably still much more malleable than Daniel was, but he has been driving the same car since he was a 19-year-old rookie, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's starting to realise his cavalier attitude towards Daniel's struggles now have a tinge of irony to them. And that's a really difficult psychological barrier to get over, particularly when you know that the last guy to suffer a similar problem ended up booted out of F1 not once, but twice. And I'm sure he'll get over it, but for someone as blatantly self-critical as Lando, it's probably going to take some time. In contrast, Oscar is much more comfortable in the car and is more likely to be able to go out and start putting in laps from FP1 without needing to get too much into the nitty-gritty of where and how he wants to place the car for the optimal lap. This battle isn't about ability, but style preferences and psychology, and at the moment, Oscar clearly has the upper hand. So there's my 3 burning questions. Don't forget to share yours in the comments and click that like button if you got something out of watching this video. A reminder that the subscribe button is free and easy to click, but if you do want to contribute something more, the link to my Patreon is down in the description. And by the way, final finishing orders have been officially cancelled. I've decided after last weekend that I'm not prepared to continue playing sports fan chicken with the universe.